This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. I can see that Peter's in the recovery phase because he's not wearing a hat any longer. The hair must be growing.
It never fell out.
Well, you're right. All right. I'm going to call the names I've got, and then you'll tell me if I missed anybody. Carl Forman, Barbara Dyskant, Jake, Ken, Anderson, Peter, Dennis Correa, David, Les, Madar, Nick, Russ, Ari, Dennis McGuire, Len, Jerry, Lou, Paul Frieda, Jean. Anybody I missed?
Yeah, me, Rick. Tracy Morgan.
Tracy Morgan. Okay.
No, I'm not the comedian.
Okay. All right. So we can't ask.
Also, John A.
Tracy's from Man Up to Cancer. I invited him tonight.
Okay. Thank you. And guess who just arrived? Larry Fish. Okay.
And how do I put my image?
Okay.
Well, now we can start. Larry is here.
Yeah, we can start. That's okay. We can start.
Oh God, I can see it's a theme.
Anyone else? No. Okay. So let me just make a list of people that have never been with us before. We know that Madhav has never been with us before. We know that, I think, Ari, have you ever been with us before?
It's actually Lou. Ari was a different name.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So Lou, you've never been with us before, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. This is Doug Matthews. I'm also online.
Doug Matthews. Oh yeah. Did I not write you down, Doug? Sorry.
He just joined. He's on his phone.
Okay. Well,
I'm also on video.
You're on video, and I meant to write you down, and I'm so sorry. Oh, Doug, your name is familiar. Have you been with us before or not?
This is my second time. I was on the call last Monday night.
That's right. Okay, fair enough. Thank you for reminding me. Last Monday night was a bit of a crazy call, as you well know. But yes, I do remember now. So let me just look quickly. So as far as I can tell, there are just two people that have never been on before. Oh, Tracy.
Yep.
Tracy, you've never been with us before, have you?
No.
Okay, well, welcome. So we got three new folks. Is that right? Did I miss anybody? Three new folks, correct? Okay. I'm going to start with Madhav only because I know that Jim Ward is with us for a limited time, and I'd like for Jim to be present. And Jim, maybe you would like to introduce Madhav.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So I met Madhav last summer when I had my radiation therapy done at MD Anderson. So I think, as some of you know, I spent 2 years in Houston away from home, and I went in there for the treatment early in the morning, and Madhav was the guy who always had that first slot, and he would breeze in and out. He was like the bladder whisperer. He would always come in and hit his mark, and he'd be out of there. And we just started chatting at some point, and we hit it off, and so we got to know each other, went out to lunch a time or two, and he's got a very, very darling wife, and Madhav's just a really great guy. And so we've kept in touch, and then the weirdest thing happened yesterday when I was here. So I'm back in Houston, I think Rick knows, and Ken knows. I was back here for some follow-ups, and I'm in the waiting room to get my blood labs, and who do I see? I see Madhav. So he was there for the same reason. So we struck up a conversation, socially distanced, of course. And then we got on the phone earlier today just to catch up, and he kind of told me about his most recent journey. And I mentioned this group to him. And now he's on the call, and I think you'll like him.
Oh, I'm sure we'll like him. I hope we can support him and help him. That's the big thing.
Indeed. And I told him that you could, so no pressure.
What we usually ask our new fellas to do is to introduce themselves, to tell us a little bit about their disease demographics, their history, where they are in the treatment, and if they have any questions. And we will do our best to help you. Now, one thing I did want to say is that if you are new, we probably don't have your email address, and we like to have your email address only because you then get a reminder that there's a meeting coming up. And sometimes those reminders have other good information included in them, as they may have done for some people this week. So please send us your email. You can do that one of two ways. You can either send it to info@ancan.org. Somebody will be kind enough to put that in the chat window. If you don't know how to use the chat window, it's a little white box at the top on the right if you're using a PC. I couldn't tell you where it is if you're using a Mac. Who's using a Mac? Who can tell the Mac users where the chat window is? Oh, no Mac users. Okay. Or you can use the chat window and send it to me, or to Len, or to anybody. Or if you're not uncomfortable, you can send it to everybody, and that'll be fine too. But please do send us your email address so that we can send you a reminder for future meetings. Okay, Madhav, you're off and you're running, man. Go ahead.
You're muted, Madhav.
I think you're muted. There you go. Now,
it's a wonder, right? We all use this technology all the time, and we're still dumbasses when we first get on. So sorry about that.
Yeah.
But pleasure meeting all of you. Great to see a good audience here. And Jim, thank you for that intro. And frankly, thank you for introducing me to this group. It was lovely meeting you yesterday. And yes, I think a lot of similarities in what we've gone through. And I was lucky to go through part of that treatment with you. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate the welcome. My background, I'm a partner at a Big Four consulting firm. I'm primarily in the financial services space, been doing this for about 25 plus years. I live in Houston, Texas, and 2 miles down from me is my favorite medical provider, MD Anderson, as it happens. So, that's where I got my treatment. So the background is, I was about 48 or 49 years old when I was first diagnosed, completely out of the blue. I just went I'm diabetic, so I have an A1C test every few months. So I went to my GP and I told him, by the way, every time, I leak, sometimes, I have a little difficulty completing. He said, you're young, you're younger than the typical profile yet, and you're not of the ethnic profile either, but let's check. I haven't done a PSA for you, let's do it. Came back at 12, so, obviously alarm bells ringing, and, went and did a biopsy with Memorial Hermann. I was diagnosed with a level of Gleason 9. My PSA for the first test was 12. In 3 weeks, it went to 14. And by the time I was operated, so this was November, December, and I was operated on the 6th of February of 2019, so about a year and a half ago. and by then it was 19. So it was moving pretty fast. The Gleason being 9, they told me it's clearly aggressive. The MRI indicated that the cancer was almost complete over the prostate, and it was abutting the right edge of the prostate, but they didn't believe it had spread yet. The CT and bone scans were clean, but of course they're not as sensitive, we know that. So fundamentally they said the best thing to do is to do a prostatectomy, and hopefully we'll catch this while it's still within. That was Feb 6th. I was operated. By then I'd moved to MD Anderson. I wasn't quite comfortable with staying at Memorial Hermann, and obviously MD Anderson being around the corner made a lot of sense. I worked with Dr. Louis Pfisters, who was my urologist, and he did the surgery. And then by the first week of April is when I went in for my pathology and my post-op consult. I dealt fairly well. I thought the damn catheter was worse than the actual operation. That's how bad it felt. But, I know all of us have at some level been involved in this, so we know what we're talking about. April 1st, I was told that it had spread. So of the 29 lymph nodes that they removed, 3 of them, 2 on the left and 1 on the right, was positive. The cancer was, as they confirmed it, was pretty much complete over the prostate. So it did make sense to remove it. And the bladder neck was infected, and they also left some positive margins. So I had a 0.4 PSA coming out of mid-April, let's say. That's when I did it. So end of April, I go on to Lupron. And as we're looking at what the treatment choices were. And by the way, if I'm going into too much detail or it's too long, please ask me to speed up. I'm just not sure what the protocol is here, but I'll just take you through this as quickly as I can. Basically, given the Gleason, given the fact that it had spread, given that this was a very short time that everything was moving and I was young, they felt that they had to take an aggressive approach. So there's something called the Formula 509 trial, which I'm sure you're familiar with. It's an enhanced ADT along with radiation. They tried to get me onto that trial. I was admitted, but I was admitted to the control group, which was just paclitaxel. So I wasn't comfortable in taking a standard of care approach. So I said, I want to opt out and I want you to give me an aggressive approach. So they put me initially onto abiraterone as well. And the insurance approved it, which was good. So by April 23rd, I got my Lupron. It was a 3-month injection, and they kept me on it for 6 months. By May 1st, I started the abiraterone, and in July, I went for my radiation. That's where I met Jim as well. So they gave me a 35-day radiation, 7 weeks, and it was all around, the pelvic bed and just that area. They didn't believe it had spread beyond that. My testosterone hadn't quite come down to 0. I was still in the low 40s and 50s. So we amped up the ADT to include apalutamide. So eventually I did the Formula 509 trial without being on the 509 trial. I just went outside the protocol and did it, which we thought was the right thing to do, just given the aggressiveness of the cancer and the fact that my testosterone was still a material number. So once I took that, my testosterone came down to 0. I finished my radiation in August. I'm feeling pretty good. Fortunately, the side effects were minimal. I'm reasonably fit and strong and frankly lucky, I guess, because anything could happen, as I saw with some of the other participants, but I was fortunate. I travel a lot being a consultant, so I literally got on to travel from September itself and was very active. I had a 6-month protocol for the medication. So they said that that's what they would do and they would actually stop it in 6 months. So there were some other opinions about whether I would prolong the hormone treatment, but MD Anderson was clear that it would be 6 months. In December and January, so that's a month and a half and 2 months after my final treatment, and I'm now taking nothing more than my diabetic meds. My PSA was 0. My testosterone was slowly working itself back to the mid-hundreds. And April 28th, so effectively 6 months after the cessation of treatment, I registered a 0.1. Now, they had indicated to me, while it was aggressive and so forth, I would at least be in remission for a year or two. Nobody's giving us any commitments, but that's the kind of indication they gave me. So the fact that it was back in 6 months was actually a shock, and then a real, definitely affected me a lot more mentally as well, as I was sharing with Jim. And then subsequently, since then, I did another PSA in June, 0.2. I did a PSA last week, 0.43. I did a PSA yesterday morning, 0.6. So clearly this is moving. I've set up an appointment with my oncologist again. This is Dr. Zurita at MD Anderson. So we're meeting up most likely on Monday. And obviously need to look at what the next steps are. He did mention a clinical trial potentially with, based off of PET scans and something that would measure the PSMA to try and see if they can light up some spots and see where this might be. I don't know if I will be eligible for it because my number is 3.6. I don't know what the threshold is, but I do believe there is a threshold. So I'm not sure yet. I'll need to understand that better from him. So really worried right now. The fact that it's come back so quickly, my testosterone is up to 250 now, so I'm sure that's not helping, at least from a cancer standpoint, and making me feel good. I'm, golfing almost every day and, doing a lot of fitness and running and stuff like that. So I'm feeling pretty good, but obviously the flip side of it is that testosterone's not helping. So that's my status. I'd really like to, hear from the insights of this group. I've, heard a lot about Rick and Lee from, and, really appreciate you having me on this and, eager to engage and participate and, learn something.
Pleasure. Well, thank you for filling us in. That 9, was it a 4+5 or a 5+4?
I beg your pardon?
Your Gleason 9, was it a 4+5 or a 5+4? So
it was, I do not recall honestly, but out of the 12 cores that they took, 5 of them were 9, 4 of them were 8, and the rest were 7s, and 1 was indeterminate. So I don't remember what the sequence is, but
okay. And did it change? Was there any change in your Gleason score after your surgery from the post-pathology, the post-surgical pathology?
I don't believe they even, at least they haven't told one, but I've never got I've only got PSA updates. I've not even got a Gleason. I didn't even know I could ask. I mean, honestly,
But you should have a copy of that pathology report for your records, along with even the surgery report to see what's there. I mean, I have a bunch of ideas, but I'm going to let my man Len go first, and then I'll add in anything that Len doesn't catch, and then we'll throw it open. Len? You're muted, Mr. Fratello. You're muted. You're muted.
Mi dispiace molto. How do you pronounce your first name? Madhav?
Madhav, yeah.
Madhav. So I had a little difficulty hearing you here and there, but what did you get first, Zytiga or bicalutamide after the Lupron?
Yeah, I was on bicalutamide literally for a week. We then switched to the enhanced, so we dropped bicalutamide and went to Zytiga.
Okay, that's good. I thought I heard the reverse.
2 months later, I went to Erleada.
Okay, so post radiation, while your PSA is rising, you haven't yet been scanned. Is that correct?
At this point, no, I haven't been scanned yet. So that I'm expecting to do over the next week or 2.
And did they tell you what type of scan they would do?
He brought up this scan that is particularly sensitive. My understanding was that it would identify the PSMA, the membrane, which would potentially light up. Because I did a PET scan immediately post-surgery, so last April, and that was, again, negative in terms of spread. It didn't demonstrably show anything. So he wants to do it again. I don't know if it's exactly the same scan or a slightly different one, but he did mention it's a PET scan.
Okay, and did they talk to you at all about sequencing your biopsy tumor tissue?
Yeah, they did. And I have the pathology report here, so we can look through some of the Gleasons as well. But they did the genetic tests. I'm assuming that's what you're referring to. Is that correct?
Well, there are a number of different ones. Genetic sequencing. Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the genetic sequencing, they said it's not hereditary. And I don't have that report with me handy, but again, I'll get some of that updated, maybe even send an email out. Rick, you wanted my email, so I'll send that to you. But they basically said that this wasn't hereditary, and that's understandable for me. There's pretty much nobody in the family who's had prostate cancer. There's an uncle who coincidentally around the same time, and he's about 83, and he had a very high level of PSA and eventually was operated as well. But we've not had it. So genetically, they said that there was no connection, but they did talk about BRCA1, BRCA2, and I don't remember the exact diagnosis there. I will look that up.
So you're saying they, in sequencing the tumor tissue, you think they did tell you that you had you were positive for BRCA1 or BRCA2, probably?
One of them, yeah.
Okay. So you're familiar with PARP inhibitors and olaparib and rucaparib, all these things?
Yeah, I got to admit that the reading, honestly, Len, we split up between my wife and me. I was starting to get a lot depressed, so she took over for me and was a very strong advocate for most of the decisions we made. So I didn't get into the science of it as much deliberately because it was really affecting me psychologically.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got at least one guy on the call who's had a very successful treatment for his BRCA2 mutation, and maybe he'll chime in at some point. I'll turn it back to you for now, Rick.
Okay, so recognizing we've still got a couple of other new guys, I want to make a couple of suggestions to you, and then we'll let Carl Forman just talk a little bit more specifically about the BRCA, about the PARP inhibitor. Do you know? I guess that it sounds like they must have done two tests for you, Madhav. They must have done a germline test to see if you inherited anything, and they must have done a sequence. They must have sequenced your tumor somehow or the other, either internally or sent it out. Do you know how they sequenced your tumor and who they sent it to?
I will have to check, Rick, and I will do that.
So there should be a report with that, and that report is going to be important, and that's the report that's going to indicate that, from what you're saying, that you have a BRCA1 or a BRCA2 mutation. So for me, I think if I was in your shoes right now, I'd be looking at doing one of two things. Certainly would be maybe three things. I certainly would want to get a PSMA scan. And that is the scan. It's a detailed scan that hopefully picks up any prostate tissue that's remaining anywhere in your body, because it's sensitized to an antigen that's expressed on prostate cancer cells. I don't know whether there is the ability to do a PSMA scan in-house. Ken Anderson, do they have any PSMA scanning that you're aware of at MDA, either for 18F or for 68 or gallium-68?
I'd ask Paul. I'm sure they do. I've only had the Axumin scan there. I'm not sure why.
Okay.
I'm not 100%, I must say.
Okay, so if they don't have PSMA, then rather than messing around and going to look because we know it's recurred, I would go with an Axumin scan. The issue is going to be whether your PSA is high enough, but my guess is the way it's moving, by the time you get there, you'll be close to 1, and that should show on an Axumin scan. And the real reason we want to know that is because we want to know how many spots there are. And if there's less than 5 spots, you might be eligible for spot radiation as a management tool, not as a palliative tool. If there are more than 5 spots, you're probably not eligible. Some people will say 3, some people will say 5. Frankly, between 3 and 5, it's your call whether you want to do it or not. I tend to think personally, but I'm not a doc, but my own opinion is that if you got 5, it's too many already. If you've got 3, it's worth a shot. And if you've got 4, it's really up to you if you want to go through it. But that is a very specific management tool, doesn't often work, but it might do for you. And we would only know if that was eligible, if that was on the table once you'd done a scan. Now, the 2 large clubs that we have at our hand that you haven't tried, obviously, you're probably going to have to go back on hormone therapy. And the sooner you go back on ADT, probably the better you are. So you're going to have to go back on ADT. It puzzles me why they only kept you on for 6 months with the sort of diagnosis you have. I don't get that. Normally we see men being kept on for longer than that when they even with salvage with adjuvant radiation, which is what you have. But other than the hormone therapy, which goes without saying, and for which you may be a good candidate for intermittent, meaning you can get on and you can get off and what have you, you've got to get back on it probably for at least 12 to 24 months to get a solid base. And then you can start counting the days along with Jim Ward, okay? But the 2 big clubs are chemotherapy or a PARP inhibitor. You don't do them at the same time. That's going to be a discussion. I don't know this. I don't know Zarita. We know some of the people there. We know the Greek lady. I forget her name, Elena, whatever her name is. And we know Dr. Korn really well. And we know a couple of the other people by name, but don't know Dr. Zarita. But I think the issue you're gonna have to drill down on is whether to do the chemo first or whether to do the PARP inhibitor first, if in fact it's confirmed that you do have a somatic BRCA mutation. And again, some of this may be a function of where the cancer is and how much cancer you have, which we would know from one of the scans. There are a bunch of guys on here who can talk to you about chemo. I wouldn't suggest we do that now, but we can do it next week or the week after once you've got more information. We've got some guys who have experienced PARP inhibitors, and I'll let Carl, who has had a good result from his PARP inhibitor but didn't have a great result from his hormone therapy, talk to you. His mutation is inherited. It is a germline mutation, meaning he inherited it, meaning that BRCA mutation is in every cell in his body. In your case, that's not the case. In your case, most likely, it's in every metastatic prostate cancer cell. And it may be in the primary too, we're not so sure. But usually with prostate cancer, if it's in one metastatic cell, it's in all metastatic cells with prostate cancer. Okay, so it would be effective for all the metastatic cancer, and pretty much everything you have is metastatic because you've already had your prostate taken out.
Yeah.
Right? Carl, why don't you talk quickly about your experience on PARP?
Sure. I guess just to cut to the chase, I had also been on Zytiga, abiraterone, and prednisone. I was on it for about 6 months. In between, I also had my prostate removed, robotic surgery. So after the surgery, the PSA started rising. It went from 0.12 to 0.55 within 3 months after the surgery, and that was while I was on Zytiga. So my oncologist said, it looks like the Zytiga is not really being effective, and we need to switch you. Now that we know that you are BRCA2 positive, we're going to put you on a PARP inhibitor. Now, as you may or may not know, the olaparib was recently approved by the FDA just a few weeks ago. I've been on it for about not quite a year and a half, probably a year and 4 months. So my oncologist was able to get what's called off-label approval and use for me to get to obtain that medication. And with what they call precision medicine, it was determined that that would be the most effective for me, especially since I'm BRCA2 positive. So for about 15 months, I had been undetectable with PSA. Right now, it's slowly, and I'm not really concerned because it's gone to 0.02 and then 0.04. I'm going to be having a blood test next week, but it's still very low. And then having initial discussions with my oncologist, it says, I can see you staying on olaparib for at least through the end of the year, if not the beginning of next year, because it does appear to be quite effective for me, and it has been.
Thanks, Carl. One thing we do know from all of these studies is that there is a pretty good response rate to PARP inhibitors if you have a BRCA1, BRCA2 mutation. Len, you're actually, I know you're looking at some of this right now. Can you remember the response rate on, isn't it around 40 to 50% for if you have the BRCA mutation? 44?
Well, in the TOPARP trial by De Bono, they found that I think it was 14 of 18 who had BRCA mutations who responded. That was a pretty high percentage.
Yeah, I mean, most of these trials, Len will share better information with you for reasons not pertinent to this conversation right now. We're actually looking pretty carefully at some of these trials. And so we'll have a better feel. But the response rate, if you have the BRCA mutation, is very good. If you have any of the other mutations, it's not so good. Any of the other HRR, homologous recombination mutations, it's not anywhere near as good. But for BRCA, it's really good. So I think that I would focus specifically on your conversation with Zarita, focus on one, getting a scan. As a minimum, it should be the Axumin scan, which we know is available at MD Anderson. I mean, don't let them palm you off with a C11 or something like that. Make sure it's at least an Axumin, and at best it's a PSMA sensitive scan, whatever they're offering, okay? And then discuss with him sequencing of chemo or PARP.
I also just wanted to mention that I am on ADT as well, so
yes.
Lupron/Eligard. So in addition to the PARP inhibitor, I'm on that as well.
Yeah. So you know, I know that there's a strong resistance to chemo with a lot of men, but we've got men here who will vouch for it and who haven't had such a tough time. Also want to make sure you know we have an under 60s call, which Jim has probably told you about, that Ken moderates. And we'll get you, as soon as I have your email, we'll get you onto the list and the reminder. And when are you seeing Zarita?
Most likely the 20th, Monday.
Okay, so you'll come back to us. We'll have a call Monday night. So you'll come. We'll have a call Monday night. Yes, we'll have a call Monday night. So you'll come back if you feel like it, and you'll tell us what's going on between now and then. Don't hesitate to get in touch with us if you need some guidance. Let me just open it up very quickly. Anybody else have anything important they'd like to raise with Madhav?
Madhav, this is you've got very similar stats as I do. I started off with an RP and then had to do radiation, and I've done 2 PSMA scans, one that found a couple of mets and lymph nodes that I took care of with proton. Now, then I did another one. PSMA does work at a low level, like 0.6. I did my second one at 0.8. So it does work at that low level. And I just did my last. I'm going to publish on a PARP inhibitor, but my doctor, for various reasons, and myself decided to go with chemo first. So I did 6 rounds of chemotherapy, including carboplatin, which you weren't asked about if you do chemo. Chemo is a game changer. It's a tough one to deal with, but carboplatin has shown that with a BRCA mutation, because I've got a somatic BRCA mutation as well, it's probably driving my cancer. And I've been at this for 6 years, so I know you're young, and I know it's fast moving, and I knew from the get-go that I was going to have trouble too, but I've been managing it, and they're coming out with new stuff all the time, and we're going to keep going. We're going to keep going.
Peter, did Dr. Turner ever give you a rationale why he wanted to do the chemo before the PARP?
Because of the last PSMA scan and the subsequent biopsy found these odd metastatic stuff in my peritoneal cavity. He consulted with Schultz and Lamb, and the 3 of them decided that was the best option for me because of the way the mets formed and how small they were and how early it was. So until I do a scan, hopefully I don't know.
Okay. So Len just posted in there in the chat window that 14 out of 16 patients responded in the TOPARP trial. I think that's a very small sample again, but I seem to, the number in my mind that sticks is 44%. But whatever it is, it's a pretty high batting average for these. Madhav, thank you, and thank you for posting the telephone number. If you, I'm just going to silence you for a second. Lou, could you just mute yourself for a second? We're getting feedback. Thank you. We were getting bad feedback from you. All right, I've got to move on. We could talk to you for the whole 2 hours, but we got to move on. We got to move on. Okay. Let's go to Lou next, and then we'll go to Tracy. Okay, Lou.
Okay, hi guys.
Hi.
Hi guys. I'm a 71-year-old male. I got prostate cancer diagnosed 3.5 years ago. Big Gleason scores. Immediately had a roboticized surgery. They thought they got everything. They didn't. It metastasized to 3 spots in my body: hip, spine, and lung. I went right to chemo, 6 treatments of docetaxel. Then followed up with Lupron and Eligard ever since. They tell me I'll be on it the rest of my life. The Lupron and Eligard brought the numbers down very close to 0, and they started creeping back up. So about 18 months ago, I started on Xtandi. After about 2 months, I was negligible PSA, and I've stayed there. I've been scanned every 6 months since the surgery. and the latest drug that they added to me was for bone density. It's called Prolia, and I've really never felt any symptom of cancer, even though I've got a pretty good case. All the pain and aggravation is from the drugs they give me to keep it from coming back. Yeah. That's it in a nutshell.
Boy, thank you for such a concise and terse summary. What was, a couple of questions. What was your PSA when you, sounds like you were diagnosed around October of 18, is that right? What was your?
17.
17. My math was off, doing it too quick.
I think it started at 11, or it was either 11 or 14.
11. Okay, so it was in that range. And what was your Gleason score after the surgery?
I don't know that I ever got a Gleason score after the surgery.
Okay. What was your Gleason before the surgery?
8.
4 plus 4.
I think it was 5 plus 4. 5. Yeah, 5. It's either 5.3 or 4.4.
Okay. So you could have been a 5.3. That's an unusual one, but it's very possible.
That probably wasn't. Yeah.
What happens, Lou, is that they slice up your prostate afterwards, and then they can give you, they have an exact Gleason score, which is what we were talking to Madhav around before. So you will know, you should know, and if you've got a 5 in your number, it may be helpful to know as you progress, or it may be helpful for the docs to know as you progress. Where are you being treated? Where do you live and where are you being treated, Lou?
Oh, I'm in suburban Maryland. I'm being treated out of Georgetown, Dawson.
Okay, Georgetown. At Georgetown Hospital, and who is your medical oncologist?
Dawson. DAWSON.
Yeah, I think we had somebody who saw Dawson. What's the first name?
Nancy.
Yeah, we had somebody who saw her a few years ago, who had a very, very, very tough case. Now, when did you start on the Xtandi?
18 months ago.
Okay, so that's really sort of the beginning of 19.
That's it.
Early 19, and it brought your PSA down to undetectable, did you say?
That's correct.
And are you still undetectable?
Yeah, I get
Great.
tested every 8 weeks, and every 6 months I get scanned.
Okay, and what do those scans show with respect to the metastasis that was seen in the hips and the spine and the lungs after your surgery?
They have not grown. They've all been stable.
Stable, okay. But they haven't shrunk either.
Nope.
Okay, those are my questions right now. I'm gonna let Len first of all talk to you, but let me ask you, what questions do you have for us that we can focus on as we respond to you?
I didn't really come in with any questions. It's the first time I've been in this group. I came mostly to listen, happy to provide any information I can, or
Excellent.
any insight that I can.
Fantastic. Okay, Len, what would you like to say to Lou?
Hello. Did anyone say anything to you about the fact that even though they still see or can detect metastases in the hips and lungs, that you have an undetectable PSA that could be a little troublesome if in fact those represent lesions of cancer cells that are not producing any PSA. That would not be a good thing. But did you ever have a conversation with your oncologist about that?
Doesn't sound familiar.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good thing that that the lesions hadn't grown.
Oh yeah, it's good that they haven't grown. They could be in a dormant state where they're simply no longer they're not metabolically active, they're not producing any PSA.
You know, it seems to me, I do recollect the doctor saying that it's very possible that the way these tests are done and what they reveal is a lesion that is dormant, but we haven't had a real strong conversation about that. I thought I was supposed to be happy that they were not doing anything.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, you're responding well to the Xtandi. What was your PSA before you began Xtandi?
It was in the range of 0.5.
Okay.
I think that what Len's focusing in on is an interesting point, and it is worth reviewing with Dr. Dawson. And that is that you never had a very high PSA, given that you had fairly extensive metastasis at the time of diagnosis. Because we know that I shouldn't say we know, but it's pretty certain that the metastasis that was in your hips, your bladder, your hips, your lungs, and your spine was present at diagnosis. And I think the concern.
Somebody's got a background that I'm having a hard time hearing. I can hear.
Yeah, it's the feedback that's coming from Len's. It's the feedback that's coming from Lou's telephone. You might try turning the volume down a tad on your telephone, Lou, and we might be able to.
I'll turn it off so you need to hear from.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that's where it's coming from. I'm apologize for that. And I think what Len's focusing in on is there anything weird about those metastases? Have those metastases ever been biopsied, Lou?
No.
Okay. That's the question. The one question that might be good to drill down with Dr. Dawson. I mean, could it be that it could be that they're dormant, or it could be that they may be a different type of prostate cancer, small cell neuroendocrine. We don't really know, but that I think is what Len's looking for, because if that was the case, then it might change the treatment that would be the correct treatment for you right now. At the same time, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And you're doing well on the Xtandi. And I would say ride it out for at least another year and a half. We on this call are a little skeptical about people that get very long periods of success from these second-line anti-androgens, meaning 4 or 5 years, because we've seen at least 2 men who finished up with untreatable cancer once those treatments failed, because the cancer gets so smart that it works around and becomes untreatable. And so one of the things that we've discussed, and we've actually heard some of the doctors discussing more recently, is the possibility of changing up treatment or down treatment or switching treatment, even if you're having success. But we kind of feel that you probably can get 3 years safely. We're not docs. This is totally anecdotal. It's what we observe. But I just want to say to you, just because a treatment is working, don't get too comfortable, because you may need to switch that treatment around. Is that making sense?
I hear what you're saying, but I'm wondering, does it make sense to even consider switching up treatments when it's working? Why not wait until the PSA goes up?
Well, what we're saying is, if it's working it doesn't make sense for you right now because you've only been on it for 1.5 years. But if you get more than 3 years out of it, I would revisit the discussion with us.
Oh, I see. I believe Dawson's theory is you pile on some more drugs. For any time you see an uptick in the PSA, you go to the next drug, which in this case would be Zytiga, and then the.
Okay, but you're doing great. Anybody would like to talk to Lou, or have any thoughts or anything they'd like to say to Lou?
Lou, this is Jake. I was on Xtandi for over 3 years, and it worked just fine. So stick with it as long as you can. Once you go to the next ones after that, chances are they won't last or work quite as well, and they probably won't work as long as the Xtandi.
Lou, this is Dennis. I just wanted a quick second what Rick was talking about. This neuroendocrine. Typically, there's one that's called a therapy-induced neuroendocrine cancer, and it will not show PSA. You can have a very low PSA and have this cancer, which is extremely difficult to treat. So I personally, I'm kind of on watch for this for myself, because I've been, 4 years on the Lupron and Zytiga, basically. And there's some studies going on right now to that effect. And I think it's called the PRINT trial, PRINT. If you want to get more information, you can look that up on the clinical trials website.
Yeah.
All right, thanks a lot.
Yeah, and like we say, Lou, you're not there yet. I mean, you've got a good ways to go, and hopefully you'll keep going, and you'll be wrestling with the side effects. Hopefully you're exercising, because that should help you with the side effects. Come back another time very soon, we hope, and we'll talk to you about exercise. But I'm gonna keep moving on and get to Tracy, because we've then got to get around everybody who's here. Tracy, welcome to AnCan, especially coming from a very what's the word I want? Your heritage is very good, coming from that Trevor Maxwell group, Man Up to Cancer.
Yeah, he's quite a guy. And
we're very happy to have you here. We do offer our sincere sympathy that you happen to know Russ Smith, and you're a good friend of his, but that's okay. We're here to support you in living with Russ Smith.
Well, Russ and I have a hard time getting word in edgewise. We got the colorectal guys talking and Man Up Zoom meetings, so that's just the way it is. We're in the minority still over there. I found out beginning of last May 3rd, last year, 2019. I had severe back pain for about 6 weeks, lower back pain, and I finally got sent for an MRI to find out what's going on. I think, oh great, I'm going to get find out what's going on with my back. Well, the MRI came back and they said, you have prostate cancer that spread to your bones. So that wasn't good news. Next week, met with my GP, who sent me, I live in Illinois, so I'm about 90 miles southwest out of Chicago. he sent me up to Joliet. There's Advanced Urology Associates up there. That's a pretty good urology firm, and they have a prostate cancer center and oncologists and everything right there. Went in and met them so I found out Friday about the MRI. Tuesday, met them the first time, met my urologist, met the oncologist. He looked at my MRI, said if I could, I would start you today on radiation, because what I had was a tumor. I think it was like a T12L1 that was growing inward of the vertebrae and was already starting to contact the sac around the spinal column. So he was very adamant about wanting to get going on it. I also met with neurology end of the week. They said that's a good plan, let's go with that. And I started Friday on 10 days of radiation on that lower back. 10 days radiation took the back pain away, and it's been gone ever since. So that was good. I started that first week on Cassidex just to get started with something. And by the time I finished the 10 days radiation, I switched to Zytiga and prednisone with Permagon shots. I am still on that today, Permagon and Zytiga. October of last year, I did 20 days radiation on the prostate. My urologist talked back and forth. He goes, some guys will say, or oncologist said, some guys will say, wait with it. He goes, I'm in the belief of going after it now to try to mitigate some of the other issues you'll have with the prostate later. So that was done, like I said, in October. I started out 294 was my PSA. So I've got Mets at the neck, middle back, lower back, a couple ribs, the pelvic area is a lot. The neck and ball of the left femur has got cancer, and the right femur has cancer. So I got quite a bit involved. I guess on the right hip, I actually got it coming down from the, the pelvic bone area down around it. So we stuck on this. Went from 294. Right now I'm at 0.01. It dropped almost immediately. I think I went to like 17 after the first month, but it went way down. I did a scan, CT scan, about 3 weeks ago, just to check up on stuff. Everything was stable. They did say the prostate had shrunk from radiation last year, but everything else is stable. And right now is kind of where I'm at. I'm just sitting on a low PSA and kind of cruising on what I'm taking for meds. So.
How old are you?
59, so I was 58 when I was diagnosed.
Okay. So again, I'm sure Russ has told you we've got that younger man.
Under 60.
Yeah, it's good, cool. Well, interesting to me in a couple of respects. It sounds like you have a urologist and a radiation oncologist. Do you have a medical oncologist?
No, I do not.
You do not. So I have to give you the party line, if that's okay.
Please do. Please do.
And the party line is that a urologist should not be running your treatment, and in your case should never have been running your treatment from the outset. And the reason for that is because urologists are surgeons. They're not trained in internal medicine. And the treatment that you've needed from the get-go has been systemic in one form or another. And it was probably the right thing to get your radiation treatment to the gland. We tend to see that a lot today. In the last few years, there are guys on this call who have done treatment to the gland, 2 or 3 of them, and that's a very good move. But the biggest issue for me was why they didn't give you chemo off the bat, because the trials now would indicate that when you have high volume metastasis like you have, the best treatment to start with is chemotherapy, and then to follow that up with the drugs that you're getting. and not to do it the other way around. It's recommended to do it the other way around if you have low volume metastasis. Say you would have had 2 or 3 spots, maybe like a couple of the other guys that we talked to. But with the amount that you had, I think you should have been considered. Was chemo ever discussed with you?
Yes. We basically talked about chemo and doing ADT, and it was kind of left up to us. And our decision was to try the ADT because, you know, I'm actively still working. And
sure. Well, I mean, the chemo is in addition to ADT. So the ADT would have happened anyway, but the question is, should you get the chemo or should you get the second-line anti-androgens? And you went with the second line. It's worked. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong. What I am saying is, if I was in your shoes, I would want a different quarterback. I would want a quarterback who was a medical oncologist, not because these guys have done anything radically wrong, but when this disease moves and needs managing, as unfortunately it's likely to do, you want the best expertise possible. And for where you are, it's available. Yeah. You know, I'd send you, if you're, what did you say, you're 90 miles southwest of Chicago?
Yeah.
I'd recommend Walter Stadler at U of C. Very, very nice man. We've sent a bunch of people to him. Was just talking about him today with Jim Schreit, who's the board chair of us too. We've had everybody that we've ever sent to him has come back and liked him. We've got other options, but then I'm going to send you downtown to Northwestern, whereas I can save you having to deal with that if I send you to U of C. I lived in Hyde Park, so
okay.
I'm somewhat empathetic here.
Rick, the good news is if he goes to Northwestern, he can go and get Gino's East Pizza while he's there.
Okay. I'm looking
for my best interest, Russ. I'm glad to see that.
Yeah, I'm looking for at least a smile from David Muslin. I don't even see a smile from David Muslin to that comment. So that would be, my feeling would be, look, if it ain't broke, don't fix it in terms of the treatment. But I don't think you've got the right guy calling your shots. And we want to keep you around for a long time.
Yeah,
and
so do I.
In order to do that, we want to get you to the best genitourinary medical oncologists that are out there. And we don't want a urologist running your care right now. And that's what you've got. Who else would like to chime in on that?
Just quickly that Tracy, I did the same thing after I joined this group. They recommended a medical oncologist, and I ended up going to Dana-Farber, Boston, and it was the best thing I ever did. I was trusting my urologist who did the surgery, but you really need an MO that will quarterback each direction you need to go. So I'm just echoing what Rick said. I took their advice, and it was great advice that worked out well for me.
Okay.
Len, you wanted to say something?
Yes, thank you. Tracy, I'm not sure I got the order of your treatments correct. What was your very first treatment? Was it the spot radiation to the spine?
To the back. Yes.
And what came after that?
From there, I was on Casodex like during that first week and a half or so, and then I switched to the Zytiga and Firmagon.
Okay, so did you get a PSA check between the spot radiation and the beginning of ADT, Firmagon and Zytiga?
I don't think so. We did a PSA that first Tuesday, that first day I was there. I think that one was like a 284, and they from the biopsies where they gave me the 294. So no, I don't think there was anything in between in that 2 week time.
Okay, the reason I'm asking Well, first of all, I agree with Rick. Don't fix what ain't broken. You're doing great. But I'm wondering, what do you think, Rick? I'm wondering if Tracy had an abscopal effect from the spot radiation that on top of the ADT brought his PSA down so rapidly.
Yeah, man, it dropped like a rock.
Yeah.
Which is a great sign, by the way. I mean, they've done studies that have shown that when your PSA drops quickly when you start ADT, it bodes very, very well. But what Len is talking about is something that we've talked about for many years, but it's just getting recognized, is that the radiation can it can stimulate your T cells, and it can create an immunotherapy response from within your own body, which we call the abscopal effect.
Okay.
I mean, it would be interesting to know, does it really matter? Not really, because you're where you need to be right now. But it's an interesting observation. This is how my buddy Len's mind works. I can't excuse that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just an academic observation. That's all. Still agree with Rick. You're doing the right thing. Keep it up.
Well, this is my first rodeo, so.
Yeah. Anybody else like to talk to Tracy? Anyone else here who started with a urologist and who took them into metastatic treatment and have since switched to a medical oncologist? Does that fit anyone else's bill here?
That's how I started too. I went to the urologist first and then went to the oncologist. In fact, I didn't even see an oncologist after my surgery, and in retrospect, I thought that was, MD Anderson is supposed to work as a team. So I was a little surprised by that. I actually went only to urologists. Post-op, I went to Zurita.
Thanks. But anybody who's been given Lupron shots, LHRH shots by a urologist, because that's the key. It's when they start giving you those LHRH shots and the dollar signs start flashing through their eyeballs, because they love giving those shots because they're a cash cow for them, and they don't want to give you up at that point. And that's really where we tend to get some issues. And I think before it's too late, make that switch. It'll be hard to do, but you got to make that switch. Do you have all your records digitally?
I think I got most of them. I'll have to go back through and look, but.
Okay.
We just started the associates I go to just started an online thing, so I should be able to get everything off the online too. So. Okay.
Well, I think that's the biggest takeaway I would impress upon you from today's meeting.
Gather info and go.
Okay. I'm going to go through everybody at this point and see who needs some time today. We will get around as many of you as we can. This room gets used again at a half an hour after the meeting is supposed to finish, because I know you're in all different time zones. So that might be 5:30, 6:30, 7:30, or 8:30. So we will hang in for as long as we can, if necessary, until my multiple sclerosis people start to join. So I'm going to start at the top and find out who needs some time today. Carl, do you need any time today?
Not today, thanks.
Jake, I'm going to throw you in for a very quick update. People want to know how you're doing.
Okay.
Ken, I'm going to do the same for you. Just a quick update so people know you're okay. Peter, would you like any time?
No, I think I'm good. I'm
okay. Fine. Dennis Correa, would you like any time?
No, thank you, Rick.
Dennis McGuire, would you like any time?
Hey, Rick, no update. Thank you.
Okay. David Maslin, would you like some time?
One minute, Rick, just 1 minute.
1 minute, okay. Les Shelderup, any time for you today?
Just a few seconds, be okay. Thanks.
Okay. Nick, any time for you today?
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Russ, anything for you today?
Yeah, 3 or 4 minutes.
Okay. Doug Matthews, would you like some time today?
Yes, I would.
Okay. Len, anything for you today?
No, sir, not tonight.
Okay. Jerry, anything for you?
No, thank you.
Paul Frieda, anything for you?
Yeah, I got a couple questions on my bone density scan.
Okay. Gene, anything you'd like to talk about?
No, thanks. I'll just lurk.
Thank you. Barbara's gone, Tracy's gone. Larry Fish, anything for you? Mr. Fish?
He stepped away.
He stepped away. Okay. John A, anything for you?
I got a question or two, yes, short.
Okay. And John Hall, anything for you? You're muted. We can see that he's still muted. John, I'll come back to you when I see you're unmuted. Okay? All right. Looks like you don't have too much anyway, but if you do, or stick something in my in the chat window if you do want some time. All right, let's start. Jake, can you just give the guys and me a quick update? Because I heard rumor on the Jungle Telegraph that you were feeling pretty rough the last couple of days.
Yeah, I was. I had my second weekly chemo last Wednesday. My third one's going to be tomorrow. And most of the weekend I felt nauseous. Never threw up, but I just felt nauseous. And then I had diarrhea for about 2.5 days, which was real fun. So I called my doctor. She said, take Imodium for the diarrhea. And she gave me a prescription for an antiemetic for the nausea. It's called Granisetron, I believe is pronounced. It's not Zofran, but it's something similar. Equally effective. And I'm waiting for the pharmacy to deliver it tonight. I hope I'll get it. That's about it.
So the one thing that comes out of this, and I just want to say, I've said it to a couple of the guys this week, is that if you do find yourself going through chemo, please ask your med-onc to prescribe you to keep in your kitchen cabinet some basic drugs. So you do need a drug you'll need a drug for constipation, you'll need a drug for diarrhea, you'll need a drug for nausea, but it's just really important that you have those drugs on hand. What you really don't want to be doing is finding yourself in the situation that Jake finds himself in right now, where he doesn't have those drugs and he's got to ask for them.
Right.
Because you don't have to suffer like that. There's no reason for you to, there's no reason for, we have great drugs right now. Do they always work? No, they don't always work. But if they don't work, we can switch. If Jake's drug, Len, what's the trade name for Jake's drug right now?
Kytril.
Kytril?
Kytril. Kytril.
Right. So apparently they stopped making it. So as far as I know, it's only available generic.
Okay, but my point is this: if the Kytril doesn't work, they'll give you Zofran or something else. But have something on hand so you don't have to suffer. And that's just a good tip for anybody that finds that's embarking on this sort of treatment. So I hope the antiemetic works for you, and I hope you have an easy day tomorrow. And
Well,
I'll check in with you tomorrow, and I'll get my weekly dose of the Dex High Jake.
I was going to say, I'll probably feel pretty good tomorrow night. The dexamethasone does have an effect. It wears off, and then you feel like shit.
Right, you heard it
Hey,
here
Jake,
first.
Jake,
Say again?
Jake, Barry.
Yeah.
I've mentioned this a few times when the troubles that I had with the chemo and the dexamethasone wore off, and they gave me a shot of develop the white blood cells, Neulasta.
So either Neupogen or Neulasta.
Neulasta, yeah. And then when that starts, you feel pain inside your bone marrow and bones when the dexamethasone wears off. So I spoke to my oncologist at that time, and I was able, I don't know, I think I was getting like a 20 milliliter of dexamethasone with the chemo. And then the Neulasta the next day, I spoke to the oncologist, and he gave me, pills, 2 milligram dexamethasone pills. I don't know if I have my dosages exactly right. It's 5 years ago. And what I did was I weaned myself each 3 weeks off the pain from the chemo and the Neulasta. So I would wait a day until the Neulasta shot and take 2 or 4 milligrams, and then 2 milligrams, and then 2 milligrams, and then skip a day and 2 milligrams, and then nothing. And I got rid of that horrible effect that I had from the chemotherapy. It was just something to think about if it's really bad for you.
Can I just say, Larry, I think the biggest issue with Jake is that he's on a weekly chemo regimen.
Yeah.
And so it's so much more difficult to, not that the theory isn't right, and maybe you could talk to her about having some, very light prednisone or dexamethasone 5 milligram pills available to you if you needed them.
Even 2 milligram was really helpful.
Yeah, but it's so much more tricky when you've only got 7 days between each infusion.
Yeah. So you get Jake, you getting a shot of Neulasta or the other one every week?
Yeah, Neulasta is for when you have the 3-week chemotherapy. Neupogen is a shot that you get 1 day afterwards.
1 day after. And do they give it to you no matter what your white cell count is? Or they all may skip
Well,
it?
so far, yes. My wife gives me a shot the day after, within 20.
Oh, right. Now they have you give it. Yeah, before you used to have to go in for that.
Okay.
That's why I'm sorry to take time, but
no problem. Larry, did you need to have any time?
I'm fine.
Okay, good, because you weren't there when we asked you last time.
Yeah, I had a call.
Okay. So let's move on. Let's move on to Ken. John Hall, I see a green light. Did you need time today?
No, I'm fine. Thanks.
Okay. Let's move on to Ken Anderson for a quick update from Ken.
All right, guys, just a quick report because I know none of you guys had a chance to talk last week because we had 5 new guys. I must admit I was a little concerned that a re-challenge with docetaxel, those of you that don't know, when I was diagnosed 3 years ago, I did the 6 rounds of docetaxel right after diagnosis within like 30 days because I had more than 4 mets. I had I think 7, 5 or 7, I can't remember today, but anyway, Paul Korn at MD Anderson proposed what he called a re-challenge with docetaxel using the same taxane-based drug versus moving on to cabazitaxel, and I was concerned that it just wouldn't work, But luckily, this last lab work showed that my PSA increase, and I'm going to go back and look real quick so I can report it correctly. On 5/8, my PSA was 23, 6/19, it was 39. So it was a pretty good increase after the first round of chemo, the re-challenge with the first round. Then most recently, after 2 months on chemotherapy, the PSA rise went up about 1.8 to 41.3. So it's definitely caused some cancer cell death, and the curve is flattened out substantially. I just hope I get it to turn more of a downward mode over the next 7 or 8 months. That's about it. I must admit I'm feeling fairly well for having, 2 rounds of chemo in me, actually 3 rounds of chemo in me. So that's about
Ken,
it.
tell them what you did with your Neulasta.
The
A lesson learned.
Yeah, Neulasta patch. Well, I live in the Southwest and it's hot, so the day after chemo, well, the day of chemo, they placed a patch on the back of my arm for the injection 24 hours later. And here in the Southwest, it was hot and humid. I went for a walk and the dang patch fell off. And I'd called, I guess, their emergency line because I talked to Jake and he convinced me to give him a call. So I called him and they said, yeah, it could be a problem. And so I just wrapped it with an ace bandage, but it never did go off. So I'd recommend either wrapping it with an ace bandage or not going for a walk in the morning after chemo.
Okay.
Lesson
Well,
learned.
Good news
Hey,
is you
Ken,
found
you
it.
say you're going to do 9. You're going to do 9 chemos.
Well, Paul's comment was in groups of 3s, and I think I'm going to do it until I can't.
Okay.
Ken, this is Peter. They
Yeah.
automatically wrap my Neulasta every time with an ace bandage. So
Well, that's because they know in Maui.
yeah, it stayed on fine every time and went off when it needed to 27 hours later. Yeah.
I'm going to definitely have them do it here next time. So.
Okay, guys, thank you for filling us in. Jerry Pelfrey, did I ask you if you needed time? I have a feeling I forgot to ask you.
No, you did.
Okay.
I don't need anything.
Okay, I was feeling guilty. Okay. All right, so let's move on to David Muslim.
Okay, real quick, guys. I started Xtandi a week ago Monday, and I'm feeling okay. I haven't felt any side effects yet. And my hot flashes that I complained about a couple weeks ago seem to be calming down, so that's not such an issue anymore. And next Monday, I start spot radiation for the 2 mets that I have on rib 3 and 9. So I'll have 3 days of that next week at Northwestern. That's my update.
Oh, okay. Anybody want to say anything to David about the Xtandi or what to expect with the spot radiation?
I'd just like to add one thing. This is Lou. The Xtandi for me, and I was told it by the doctor, they're fairly common, creates some very, very weird dreaming at night, almost a horror show. So to the guy who just started it, be aware. Nothing to be concerned about. Just be aware it's going to happen.
Yeah, so I had a dream last night with a beautiful girl, so I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing.
Thank you, Lou. And we've heard that before, not that often, but we have heard that before. Anyone else? Jake, you were on it for 3 years. How many weird dreams did you have?
That was not one of my side effects, to be honest. I felt pretty good when I was on the Xtandi. I mean, I was tired, but then I'm always tired. So yeah, that was the only side effect that I had.
Okay.
Yeah. Everybody responds differently, unfortunately,
Jake, let me ask you a question about that. Did the fatigue come on quickly, or did it take a while?
Oh, I don't remember, David, to be honest. I think it was gradual.
Okay.
I mean, I had been on Lupron for, probably 4 years before that. So I was already, feeling knackered. And then I tried the Xtandi, and I think it was gradual. It's all cumulative, unfortunately.
Okay.
But, the good thing is it worked for me for 3 years. It kept my PSA low.
Got it. Got
And
it.
that's the important part. That's the one that worked the best for me.
Got it. And when I hear about the spot radiation, it should be a non-event. Three doses of the spot radiation. So I'm kind of looking forward to it, and I'll be on next Tuesday and let you guys know how I'm doing.
Fantastic. Lou, have you experienced fatigue from the extendee?
I would say there was some at first, but not very much. The other big symptom that I had was, and it's listed as one of their main symptoms, is some sort of physical awkwardness when I was like walking. You tended to stumble a little bit, look like you were on some other kind of disease. That went away rather quickly. I'm a daily exerciser, so it was particularly gruesome to me, but it went away.
Great. Okay. I'm
Thank you, gentlemen.
going to keep moving just so that try and get around everybody. Les, you wanted a couple of minutes.
Well, just a quick one. I had done the blood test, and my PSA is going up again. It's going up at a rate of about doubling every 6 weeks. That's it.
Okay. What was, so I have a record that you were at 0.4. What was the last one?
0.7 at 5 weeks later.
Okay. And what are you, and how about your testosterone? Is that still in the 400-500?
Almost the same. The previous two were identical, and the last one was just a few points off.
Okay. So what is your thinking? What are you going to do?
Well, I got an appointment to go up to Rochester, and they're going to do your favorite C11 choline PET scan.
Okay. Any talk about getting you back onto hormone therapy?
Well, nothing's been said, but that's what I was wondering about. I've talked briefly with Len about where we should be going from here.
Oh, good. Thank you, Len. Len, would you like to contribute anything?
Well, I told Les it would be, we were talking about Axumin versus C11 choline, and so one of the office staff of Quan told Les that C11 choline was superior or more sensitive to Axumin, and I sent Les Alan Dell's chart showing the opposite. So anyway, I suggested to Les that this would be great for learning experience, maybe for all of us, that maybe he should get the C11 choline at Mayo, and then at the other, I forget the other hospital, get the Axumin test, and be great to compare the results from the two. You think you might do that, Les? Is that possible?
I'll give it a shot to see what I can figure out.
Okay, well, it is approved. So, the Axumin is definitely approved. So you're in there to get it. You shouldn't have a problem getting it approved by your insurance. So we'll leave it up to you, Les.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Pleasure. When are you going, Les? When is this going to happen?
August 5th.
August 5th. Okay. Well, good luck, and keep talking to us if you need help in between.
Okay. Thank you much.
Okay. Let's see. Where are we? Nick, you're up.
Okay, great. So I have robotic surgery coming up at the end of this month, and I'm curious to know what information I should be getting after the surgery. For example, asking about somatic, asking about a Gleason score. What should I be getting out of the surgery information-wise?
Okay. So for those of you wondering why we're talking about surgery on this call, which is a fairly good question, it's because Nick is high risk, pretty high risk, recently diagnosed, and he is seeing a medical oncologist as well as a surgeon, and has decided that he wants to pursue surgery. He's not a good candidate for radiation. And so that is that's the background. I will do a couple of things. I'm writing it down on my to-do list here, Nick. I will send you some surgery tips because they are tried and tested and have been very helpful to many guys. So after the meeting, I'll send you some surgery tips. In terms of what you want to get, you definitely need to get a copy of your surgery report, and you need to get a copy of your post-surgical pathology. Those two things. And you should have those in hand. Now, beyond that, I think that we've got to wait and see what that surgery shows, and what your next step might be, and hopefully you won't need to do anything more. I do think that there's a good reason, though, for you to pursue genomic germline testing based on your family history. And if it were me, I would be talking to Dr. Kilbridge about getting a germline test.
Will do. Thank you.
Peter, this is your department. Anything I missed?
I don't know what the diagnosis is. Is the cat out of the bag? Is it already spread to the seminal vesicles or lymph nodes, or what's going on with this?
No, it's just it's a 4+4 with
Okay.
very, very low PSA. PSA is 0.4.
Okay. Well, I would
T2A.
Yeah, I would inquire about whether they're going to be able to spare the nerves, and talk to them about post-surgical recuperation of stuff of your rectal function. Talk to them about the possibility of incontinence and what they can provide in terms of rehab for that, in case you have trouble with that. Just some of these things, the urology department has, but they don't talk to anybody about it. But you want to press them and make sure that they've got something in place to support you in those ways, because those are the two big areas that the guys are kind of often left hanging with. And there's a lot of help that's available, particularly if it's a good facility that's up to speed on all the latest and greatest on that. Because you've got to work at some of this stuff. It's to just throw a pill like Viagra at it and hope that it works doesn't cut it. You've got to take some initiative, and you've got to be able to talk you through this stuff. So that would be my.
Thank you. That wasn't really the road that I was going down. Everything that you just mentioned, that's a gimme, and I've already explored all that. Where I'm coming from is that I hear Rick ask questions that people don't know the answer to about their specific case, and I want to make sure that I can answer those questions. For example, what was your post-surgical recent score? The testing on the prostate that they removed relative to genomic mutations and so forth. So that's where I'm coming from in my question.
Okay, so Nick, they're not going to do a genomic analysis on your prostate tissue. It's very unlikely unless either you request it or you're in a trial. What they will do is they will look at that tissue very closely. And in your case, it is really, really, really important. And I almost certainly would want to send my post pathology for a second opinion to Epstein. And the reason why it's so important in your case is because you have this very, very strange disease that doesn't make PSA. And what we want to know early on is, do you have any small cell cancer in there or any neuroendocrine cancer? We're looking for abnormalities in the pathology, which is different from the genomic sequencing. Are you following what I'm driving at here?
Totally, completely following. Thank you.
Okay, so, you know, even before you go into the surgery, you tell them, I am going to have this. Are you having this done at Dana-Farber?
Yes.
So even before you tell them, I will want samples to go out to Dr. Epstein. I mean, I'll tell you that my pathology, I didn't have the surgery, but my biopsy got reread by now. There was another guy that used to be as prominent as Epstein, and David begins with an H. I can't remember his name now. My doctor at UCSF said that he wanted my slides reread outside of UCSF. So, you know, just because it's a great hospital doesn't mean you shouldn't get your slides reread somewhere. Is there anything else that we can answer for you about the surgery? That, you know, anything you want to know from the guys on this call who have had surgery?
As far as donut rings and pads and depends and things, you know, I've read volumes on that and talked to many people about it. I just want to make sure that I can answer the question you're going to ask me after the fact. I don't want you to stump me.
I'm not going to ask you too much about the surgery afterwards, but Peter might, because he's our surgery maven. But no, I can't tell you anymore. I did radiation and hormone therapy, so I can't tell you much. I can't tell you more, and I can't, thank God, tell you about pads and stuff like that. What I can tell you is that for surgery, for recovery issues, it's worth joining Peter's low risk call because it gets discussed a lot on there. That's on the 2nd and 4th Mondays. And I can make sure that you're on that reminder so that you can raise that on that call. And they'll be able to help you with issues around the side effects and the recovery from surgery.
Rick, can I say one thing or ask one question? When I got my pathology report, I was really a babe in the woods and very naive. I did not even know what a positive margin was. And I think you should try to get educated on the different things that they can find when they do the pathology. So when you get the call, you understand what he's talking about. That's the only suggestion I would have.
Yeah, and that's exactly the tree that I'm barking up. That's where my head is at. Is what you just mentioned.
Right.
So,
you want to be prepared.
Yeah, the margins afterwards and so forth. That I'm interested in as much advice in that vein as possible.
Okay, so I'll also send you a link to, or if I have a moment, I'll put it in the chat window. If not, I'll send you a link, Nick, to the UCSF pamphlet called Prostate Cancer and Its Treatment that covers a lot of those basic issues. It's a very good UCSF primer, and I'll try and put it in the chat window for you.
Great, thank you.
Pleasure. Okay, I'm going to keep moving to Russ Smith.
Evening, everybody. This will be really quick. So, as mentioned before, my radiation ended 2 weeks ago, Monday, or a week ago, Monday. And so I'm just continuing my Lupron. I have one more 30-day shot coming up, and I have to finish my Casodex. So I got 6 more weeks on the ADT. Feeling good, getting more energy back. But now, you know, I'm kind of out of the woods and into the fire that I've been keeping an eye on a lesion on my kidney that we did a sonogram on last week, and it came back that it's doubled in size in the last year. It could be benign, it could be cancerous, but it's now 1.8 times by 2 centimeters. So almost 2 by 2 when it was just 1 centimeter and staying there. But that can happen from radiation as well. So I have a meeting with my MO tomorrow. It's a telemedicine visit with them that we're going to talk about the results. I also have a urology appointment set up for the 30th of July. So that's kind of my update on where I'm at.
So, I mean, I think I told you I followed one of these for about 5 years, Russ, and mine grew. I want to say it went from about 1.3 to about 1.8 or 2, and to the point where I was actually going to get it excised, and that was right around 2007 when I got diagnosed with the prostate cancer. And so we put it on hold, and right after that, it started to shrink. And then I got it checked for a couple more years, and then in the end, my urologist said, we're not even going to bother anymore.
I think it's a flare from the radiation, but you know, we'll see. But yeah, I'm not too worried about it, but it is something I want to, you know, follow up on and get checked.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you've just got to keep watching it. But as my very close buddy here in Tucson, who's a great internist, said if he had a dime for every benign cyst that he's seen, he would have been able to retire a few years ago. So, you know, I know it's bothersome. Don't take that away from you at all. But I also know that it can turn out to be a nothing. So, and the other thing is that kidney cancer is very safe as long as it's in the capsule. So you don't have to worry, but you don't want it to escape the capsule. So that's the little bit that I do know about kidney cancer from my own personal experience.
Yeah, that's the research I found. Oh, and the other last tidbit, not on the kidney, but my PSA result after radiation was less than 0.04.
Oh, wow. That's it. It's interesting to me they did it so quickly afterwards. They usually don't do it that quickly afterwards.
Yeah, I was shocked. I didn't even know I was getting it. I went to my follow-up appointment with my local MO. So my Roberts is my main MO down in Boston, but I had my procedure done or radiation done in my town at a Dana-Farber branch. And so I have an MO there that was overseeing, you know, with Dr. Roberts, kind of a assistant coach. And I went in for a Lupron shot, and they did a test as well, which I didn't know they were going to do. But it was still good to see it.
Okay, well, we're all really happy that the that it's behind you. And let's hope that the PSA continues to stay low. I mean, the fact is that it doesn't mean a lot. It's just showing that the hormone therapy is working.
Yep.
Because it's masking whatever else is really behind. But they usually don't do it so soon. But it doesn't mean an awful lot. But it's better than it being a high number. So we're pleased for you. What was your testosterone? Did they tell you?
They didn't do a baseline, even though I asked for it, and they haven't done my T level at all, ever. So I'm going to talk to Roberts about that tomorrow.
Yeah, they don't like it. He'll give you some reason why he doesn't like it, but we don't always agree with them on that one.
I agree with you. I asked him before I started radiation, should we do a baseline testosterone so to know when I get back to normal? And he says, I don't really care what you were. I want to see where you'll be.
Yeah, well, you tell him I care where I was because I want to know your relative. That's the answer. He may not, but you do.
Too late now.
Too late now.
I can tell you my testosterone is probably 0 right now.
Hey, Rick, it's Dennis. I have a quick question.
Yes, please.
What was your PSA before you started radiation?
It was low. So I had RP a year before I was re-diagnosed on February 5th of this year. Before my surgery, I was 13.1, a 4.3, and then my PSA was under 0.06. Then it was in the first year, under 0.06 after surgery, then 0.6, then 0.08. I'm sorry, there should be a 0 in there. So everything's been a 0, 6, 0.08, and then 30 days later, it was 0.09. And that's when, based on this group, that I contacted Dr. Roberts at Dana-Farber to interpret my 3 straight raises on my PSA. And that's when I went to Boston and we discussed treatment options. We agreed to 39 sessions of radiation and ADT for 6 months.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to move on because we've still got 2 more guys to cover. And I just wanted to ask Nick Malona. Nick, when did you say that you were going in for your surgery?
July 30.
July 30. Okay. Well, good luck. We will be thinking about you.
Thank you.
Okay. So, Doug Matthews, didn't you want to say something?
Yes, I did.
Well, please
Can you
go
hear me
ahead.
okay?
Yes, absolutely.
So I just came to the group on last week on Monday, the previous Monday, and at that time I was on Zytiga, and I have the ability to tell when this cancer is coming back because, as I told you all who were there previously, that the cancer has metastasized in my penis. And so when a tumor comes up, I can feel it. And in fact, I had felt it coming up, and I'm on Zytiga. We did the PSA. In fact, my PSA has gone up again. I'm up at 9.5 now. I was at about 7.4 or 7.3 2 weeks ago. And so it's moving rather fast. Plus, I could feel the tumors, and then they went ahead and did another CT scan on me. And while Dr. Singh, well, the radiologist couldn't see any growth in it. Dr. Singh said he thought he could see it in the penis, and so I'm at a point now where we're changing over medications and moving from Zytiga. So I've been through docetaxel, I've been through Zytiga now, and now they're moving me on to cabazitaxel is the recommendation. And one of the things I wanted to just run by this group is does that sound like the right progression? That's what I should be going to. If there were any other ideas, I mean, he talked about the possibility of going on some different trials, but I'm just not sure what to go. All I know is that nothing has worked so far, including radiation, brachytherapy, and then docetaxel, and now Zytiga.
So the recent CARD trial suggested that when a second-line anti-androgen fails, the best thing to do is to go to cabazitaxel. And so there is reason for him to give you cabazitaxel. And so it's not a bad decision at all. Certainly a lot better than trying you on something like enzalutamide or apalutamide or one of the other aids. The question, is that the best and what else you could do? I mean, it all depends what trials he's offering you, and we would have to look at that. You know, you'd have to tell us, we'd have to consider it, which we're happy to do. I think if it were me, I would want to know what trials could be available to me. And then I'd be looking to see if there was something that I thought might be helpful. Spot radiation, I don't know how appropriate that is in your situation. Whether it's time to do some sequencing is another issue. You know, I'm thinking that I would see how I did on the cabazitaxel. How did you do originally on the docetaxel? You did. Well,
I was scheduled to do 6 sessions, and they had to stop after 5 because it had already PSA was coming back up. And in addition to that, before I ever started all of this docetaxel and all that stuff, I had peripheral neuropathy, and now I have it a lot worse.
Okay. So yeah, I'm just looking at my notes here, and somebody just told me a lady that did a bunch of chemo, and she also did a bone marrow transplant, that she tried, oh, I wrote it down. She's been using a supplement for neuropathy, and it's been working for her. Hold on one second, and I'll tell you what it was. Just bear with me one second, because I think I know where I put it. I just want to suggest this to you. She used alpha lipoic acid. Have you tried alpha? Have you? Okay, well,
I've tried some. I guess I'd say supplements that include that as one of the things. It's not pure. I mean, it has other things in there. But,
so
was she using that directly,
yeah.
Or was it in?
No, she was just using the alpha. She was just using alpha lipoic acid. Talk to Dr. Singh about it and see if he would, if he feels that you should try it.
Okay. I will.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
Doug, have you tried anything else for mitigation of the neuropathy?
Well, they put me on Cymbalta, or
Yeah.
Cymbalta, I think it was.
Cymbalta.
And boy, that did not work for me at all. In fact, it just put me in bed is all it did.
What about Neurontin?
No, I haven't tried that.
Might be worth a try. I'd be a little concerned if it was me and the neuropathy was getting a lot worse, and you've only had how many cabazitaxel sessions now?
No, none.
I haven't had any yet. He suggested 2. Does that sound right? I mean, two sessions?
Not really. Maybe he just wanted to see what the effect on your neuropathy would be before he committed to anything more than that. But that's too low to be therapeutic. It's too few.
He said he was going to do 2 and then do another CT scan and a PSA and medicals and all. Because this stuff moves fast. If I'm not on anything, it really moves fast. And for example, I'm taking bicalutamide again because it slows it down. It doesn't kill it out, but it slows it down. And I'm still taking Zytiga because last time he took me off of everything before he put me on Zytiga, it came back just like that. I mean, it's just in my penis, filling up my penis with tumors. And so I'm not, it sounds like I've got a terrible case, but it is what it is.
Doug, have you asked him if he's had experience with any other guys with similar situation with tumors in the penis? Because it's a very unusual situation. And I'm wondering if there's a doctor someplace that has experience with this.
But that's what I was looking for too. And I went and looked online and I made the mistake of looking online and I read 2 papers about, well, your prognosis is almost nothing. And so at least this group gives me some hope of different ways to look at it. But I would love to find somebody who's had it. As far as I know, Dr. Singh has not had any exposure to that.
Right. There's got to be a urinary medical oncologist who has experience in this, who's seen it before. I mean, I'm an outlier too. I've got an odd metastasis, not in the penis, someplace else. But you might, I don't know how we can explore that, but find somebody who's got some knowledge about this or experience with this.
How do I find that person?
That's Ken Anderson. It's a great idea, Peter, reaching out to maybe some of the larger hospitals and see within their genourinary department if they have any experience. And I'll send Paul a note tomorrow and see if he can give us some guidance. If he doesn't, maybe he knows someone that does.
Yeah, that would be great. Just ask him if they've had any experience with men who have prostate cancer penile metastases.
Yeah, so Dennis, if you can just send or post your email, I'll copy it down and send you a note once I get his reply.
I'll send it to you afterwards. I'll send it to you right now. Okay, I'm sending it to you. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Doug, I've taken care of it already. I'm sending it to Ken right now.
Did they do a biopsy and confirm that it is prostate cancer, not penile cancer? It's not a skin cancer?
Yes. Well, when I first started working at Mayo, they were uncertain. So my long story is that, I went through radiation, I went through brachytherapy, and the radiation I had Gleason 8, 4+4. And then I started having problems with my penis where my foreskin was growing to the head of my penis. And this was after the brachytherapy and after I'd gotten a good result from everything. And I went to my doctor and he said, well, I think it's some kind of fungus. But to make a long story short, it took me 3 months to find somebody who could help me with the problem and diagnose what it was. And it was a dermatologist. And the dermatologist diagnosed it as metastatic prostate cancer. But there was some keratin in it. So when I went to Mayo, and actually when I went to MD Anderson and I went to Virginia G. Piper, they all said I needed a new biopsy. They did that new biopsy, 3 places at the base of the penis and 2 on the head of the penis. It was all prostate cancer.
Interesting. Okay, that's good information.
So, yeah, I mean, let's see what Paul does. If we don't get a response from Paul, there's a couple of other docs we can reach out to for you. And we'll do that we know pretty well.
Appreciate that.
And we'll see if they've got any input. In the meantime, the one thing I can tell you about cabazitaxel is it does have a lower side effect profile. I mean, we've known men who have been on it for over a year. And I would trust Dr. Singh well enough to try it and see how you do, and see if you get a response. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me that he only wants to do 2. My guess is that's because he wants to check for progression to see if you're getting a response out of it. It's sometimes hard. We've seen guys who don't get a response out of either docetaxel or cabazitaxel for 4 or 5 sessions. Some guys respond very quickly. Ken just is starting to show a response now after his 3rd session. So we don't know, but I think that it's a good systemic treatment. And my other thought would be, if you're not getting a response, then maybe what we do need to do is to sequence, we need to sequence some tumor and see if we can find if there are any mutations that are treatable in there.
So they did do a specimen to Caris,
right?
And I have all those in front of me, and most of them I would say are mutations not detected or nothing detected. There are MLH1, 2, 6, and TMS2 positive.
Hold on, slow down. So MLH,
one,
yeah. MLH2,
positive.
Right, and what else?
MSH6, positive.
Okay. So you do have stuff going on.
DSM2, positive.
MSH6, and what was the last one?
TMS2.
TMS2. Okay. Okay, so now
syndrome.
Hold on a second. Hold on 1 second. Is this was just done from blood, right?
No, this was done from the tumor.
This was done from the tumor. Have you ever done a genome test?
No, I haven't.
Sorry, a germline test.
No, I haven't done the germline test.
What we need to know, and it is relevant for your family, is you need to get a germline test, and you ask Dr. Singh, tell Dr. Singh you want a germline test, because some of these tumors, some of these mutations are inherited mutations. And we don't know from the Caris whether it's inherited or whether it's somatic, meaning you're making it yourself. If they are somatic, I'm not exactly sure the implication. We need to do a little more work. If they are inherited, then yes, I think MLH1, 2, and certainly MSH6 is Lynch syndrome. And it has implications for you.
What kind of syndrome is it?
Lynch, L-Y-N-C-H. And we need to find out if that Lynch syndrome, and Peter carries Lynch syndrome inherited. Peter, what are do we know of any precision drugs?
Keytruda, did they tell you Did they tell you your MSI is high on that report, MSI high or MSI stable? This one.
MSI stable.
Stable, that's like me, same thing. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So I think you're welcome in about 10 minutes. The lady who just logged on, we start at 5:30 with the MS call. So you're still in the back end of we're still in the back end of another call. So could I ask you to log off right now and log on in about, we'll clear this room within 5 minutes. Thank you.
Save the best for last.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is important. I mean, yes, Keytruda is, but you really need to be MSI high, but not necessarily with the MSH. I'm not 100% certain about that, but you've got to drill down on that with Singh and find out if your MSI stable, but you have MSH 6, is Keytruda in play?
Okay.
Okay. And that's an immunotherapy drug, Doug.
Okay.
Peter, do you know the answer to that? If you're MSH 6 but MSI stable?
I don't know because I'm in the same boat. I just sent my stuff to Carers too to see if it changed.
Yeah.
That's whether, that's been my quest. Does it move from stable to high, and will Keytruda be effective?
Okay, so you guys will keep talking, but we need to drill down. And I'm pretty sure that MLH1 and MLH2 are also Lynch.
Yes. Yes.
So you need to drill down more into this Lynch syndrome. Do you have what's your family history?
My father passed away of prostate cancer, and my mother from pancreatic cancer.
Okay. It sounds to me like those could well be inherited. But the problem is we don't know. So the only way we can check is for you to do a spit test or another blood test, and we'll look at that. We look at that to see if it was inherited, as opposed to analyzing a piece of tumor tissue where we don't know if it came from inherited or if it was created yourself.
Okay.
Am I making sense to you, Mr. Matthews?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So you've got to, and you need to get on the stick with that, and we need to find out what sort of precision drugs that might open up. In the meantime, yeah, the cabazitaxel, but I think if it were me, I'd be on the blower to Dr. Singh and try and get him focused on trying to help you understand the possibilities of these tumors. It bothers me a little bit that he hasn't raised this to you. When did you get this? Have you had these results from Caris for a while?
Well, yes, but I had to remind him that, hey, I had this genetic testing done. What did you guys find out? And that's when he came back and said, oh, this Zytiga should work for me because of not having all these mutations. But he mentioned nothing about the MSH1, 2, 6, etc.
Okay, why don't you do me a favor? Send a copy. Do you have a digital version of that Caris report?
I have I had a second opinion done by another company, and they actually brought the Caris information in, and so I have that. I can send it to you.
Send it to me and send it to Len. RD at AnCan and Len at AnCan.
Okay.
RD at AnCan.org and Len at AnCan.org.
Okay, great. Thank you.
If you can figure a way to get it into heaven, we could send one to Dr. Bill. We're going to have to channel Dr. Bill, Len.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
No, I also want to send it to Ellie. With your permission, I'll forward it to Dr. Van Allen.
Absolutely.
got any thoughts? Are you signed up for the Metastatic Prostate Cancer Project, Doug?
No.
Okay, we'd like to get you signed up. And again, I'll send you information on that. The metastatic prostate cancer is a voluntary database of men with metastatic prostate cancer. It's run out of Harvard and MIT. And it's run by Dr. Van Allen, who's on our advisory board. And we ask all of our men to sign up for that. They're having a little of a problem right now getting out the kits, but we just ask you to do it. And then what happens is if they find drugs that are working for people with similar mutations, they will let you know. They don't do any personal analysis, but if there's something you should know, they will tell you.
Great, thank you.
Okay. In fact,
Appreciate
Len, would
the
you
help
mind?
and support.
Yeah, Len, would you mind would you mind sending the information to Doug on the metastatic prostate cancer report? Do you have it?
Which one are you referring to? There are many.
Ellie's, the sign up page. I'll do it, don't worry.
Oh, yes, the project. Yeah, okay. I have that.
Do you have it? And don't worry about it, I'll do it. I'm putting it on my list, I'll get it done tonight. Doug Matthews, MPCP. I'll get it out to you with whatever else I said. All right.
I appreciate it.
If I tell you guys I'm going to do something and you don't hear from me, send me an email and remind me, please. Don't stand on ceremony, all right? Because it can happen that I forget more often than I would care to admit to. And
I have that problem myself.
there you go. And John.
I just put it in the chat box.
Oh yeah, it's in the chat box for you. There you go. Thank you, Doug. Can you pick it up off the chat box?
Yes.
Thanks. And also, John has put a case study in there for you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you all very much.
It's a pleasure. I've got to close the room. I know we lost Paul Frieda, but he understands and we'll put him up first next time. That's my deal with him. I hope I got around everybody else. We'll see you all in next week, next Monday. Okay? Take care, everybody.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Bye.